All right, so this week I seen an interesting clip from the Diary of a CEO podcast where a man named David Bach is brought on and he basically starts giving out his point of view from the buying versus renting, especially with the renting is better trend. I guess you could say that has kind of been going on around lately, especially with housing prices and just the initial, I guess, amount of money that you need to just get your foot in the door as far as buying. But I found his take very interesting on it. He's definitely very successful, and he definitely seems like he knows what he's talking about. But I think there's definitely two ways to look at it. He's definitely on the side of buying, which I could agree, but I also have a different viewpoint on it. But let's watch the clip here and see what he's got to say about it.
You don't get in the game of homeownership and you rent in your 20s and you rent in your 30s, you're going to turn around in your 40s and having not built any net worth.
Am I not better off renting and investing in the stock market versus buying a house?
I want to bust this myth because what happens is people come on and they go, the stock market over the last 20 years has averaged over 10% annually. People go, the returns are better in the stock market than in real estate. Yeah, but that's not apples to apple comparison. Why? When you buy a piece of real estate, when you buy a home, people don't typically pay cash for their first house. They put down 20% and they borrow the other 80%. Take a $200,000 home. You put 40 grand in. $200,000 home goes to $400,000 in 10 years. This has happened to so many people in the last 5 years. So they've made $200,000 in profit. They didn't put in $200,000, they put in 40. So they got a 5 times return on their down payment. They go to sell their house, they don't pay taxes on the gain. Because when you own a home, at least in the United States, you own a home for over 2 years, if you're single, you get $250,000 in tax-free gains. If you're married, you get over $500,000 in tax-free gains. You get tax deductions on the mortgages. So what happens is people come here and they go, you know what? You shouldn't be tied down. You need to be flexible when you're young. You don't want to have the responsibility. And you should take the extra money and you should put it in a mutual fund. And you know what happens in the real world, Stephen? People don't do that. They rent an apartment that's nicer than what they can afford, and they spend all their money. And then they turn around in their mid-30s and they have no equity because they haven't bought anything, and they also haven't saved money. It is an absolute freaking myth that people take this extra money that they could have used to buy a house and they're going to put it in the stock market. They don't do that. Certain influencers that are out there promoting the idea that renting is better than buying a home. And when you look into why do these people promote it, either A, it's a shtick because it gets them clicks on the thumbnail. B, they're selling something else. They're trying to get you to invest in their real estate. They're selling you in a coaching program. They're selling you, to come to their live event. But I'm telling you, when you look at average Americans, I'm talking about ordinary Americans, when you look at where their wealth is, it's in home equity and it's in the stock market.
So yeah, as you can see, he's definitely very passionate about buying and getting into real estate, I guess. But I have an interesting chart here, which, it's kind of like what I would say my 2 cents is it really comes down to the individual. And for example, if let's say you're not planning to stay in a place for long term and you're going to be in a place for short term, perhaps renting is going to be the way to go. And many people have said it's definitely a better form of flexibility and mobility as far as, if eventually you want to move, it's going to be a lot easier if you are renting compared to buying. And then, there's the whole situation if perhaps you don't even have the down payment to buy a home. Perhaps you're still working on your credit and you need to work out that sort of situation before you can even think about buying. And, part of that as well just comes with saving money for a down payment. Now, as far as buying, obviously, if you're planning something more long term, That's definitely something you want to look more into. And it is a form of investment, but your main home probably should not be looked at as investment. It is your main home, and if you're going to do real estate apart from that would be more of an investment. At least that's my take on it. And obviously, if you're going to be in a home, it could be something more stable, especially if you're going to have a family, have kids. I think most people do end up going in that direction. So it's definitely, more of a family move as far as buying. I mean, I have kids myself, so I purchased this home because I wanted the home with the backyard and being able to put a pool in it, having family gatherings. We have a 4-bedroom home, so each of the kids have their own room, and it's just a lot more space for all of us. Not that you can't get that from renting, but most likely it's going to be better for you to buy if you have a family, if you have kids. And now the other thing that some people got to take into consideration is there are some people with a very high net worth, and for them renting might, even though they could afford a home and probably $1 million home, renting just might better fit their lifestyle. Perhaps they don't want to deal with cutting the grass or home maintenance, and they rent and they still have plenty of money, and they have investments, and that will take care of them, and they don't even have to worry about a home. But ultimately, it just depends on the individual. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? And don't forget to like, subscribe, share the video, and I'll see you on the next one.